Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another wonderful episode of the podcast on stage. Today, we have a special artist. His name is Aaron Ryan, and he's a author. Hello, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
You're very welcome. And it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you. And as an award winning and best selling author known for your captivating sci fi and post apocalyptic novels, including the Dissonance series and your latest work, Forecast, we're excited to delve into your creative process, inspirations, and future projects. Now,
Yeah.
your impressive body of work spans various genres, from the best selling Dissonant Saga and the sci fi thriller Forecast to business reference books like the Superhero Anomaly and how to
hmm
successfully self publish and promote your independent work, which I feel a few people who I've had on my podcast will love to hear about that. Additionally, your early 90s fictional novel, The Omega Room,
hmm
showcases your versatility as a writer. From writing Electric Boy in second grade to becoming a featured speaker at events on blogging and marketing, your journey is truly inspiring. Your diverse experiences in the arts, media, and various professions have undoubtedly shaped your unique approach to storytelling and creativity. Everyone, Aaron's talents extend beyond writing in the realms of music and voice acting. He has the dynamic and engaging style that captivates audience. And whether he's performing on stage or behind a microphone as a voiceover artist, he has lent his voice to various projects, showcasing his versatility and ability to bring characters and narratives to life. And in the music industry, he's a musician, producer, and rock pop artist, and his passion for music is evidence in his performances and productions. But we're going to talk about his creative flair with technical expertise, about his diverse backgrounds in voice acting, and his enriching storytelling, adding depth and emotion to his work. That's a lot. Okay. Thank you,
I'm a
Aaron.
fruit salad.
Thank you, Aaron, for joining us on the show. I'd like to
Yeah.
ask you, um, can you tell us, can you share with us what made you want to be an author and a jack of all trades?
Boy, Jack of all trades is a really hard moniker to attain for anybody. I think that's actually what I was describing myself in the early 90s as I was bouncing from job to job and listed that at the top of the resume. But then the problem is people expect you to, produce in any field that you join in. So Um, I've been writing since I was a kid. I think one of the greatest things that I love and that I can say about myself right now is that I'm a storyteller on two different tracks. So as a voiceover artist, there's the studio back there. I'm a storyteller, but I get to tell other people's stories. So right now I'm, for example, the voice of United Healthcare. And if you hear a commercial that's all about the member IDU card and enrollment ends December 7th and all that, that's moi. So I'm a storyteller in that regard, but boy, that was kind of the horse after the cart, because I've been writing stories and songs and poetry since I was a little guy, and I wrote my very first novella as a second grade assignment in 1981 called The Electric Boy.
Mm.
Um, I've just been a storyteller my whole life, and it's just taken various iterations. So author fits me very well.
How do you come up with your dialogues and your stories, and what have you hit like a curveball? Because I remember when I was writing my short stories when I was younger, I wrote a science fiction story about one of my friends. I won't give his name in case he's watching this. And he ended up placing an explosive device on a flying saucer, but I couldn't figure out how he would get on that saucer. And the second problem
Hmm,
I had is where would he put the explosive device? So I ended it right
right.
there. I said, I can't finish this. So I ended
The
up.
tailpipe, naturally. That's where you would put it. It always goes in the tailpipe. We learned that from Beverly Hills Cop, right? You put the banana in the tailpipe. Um, boy, I'm so much a pantser. If you're familiar with the term, There's two different types of authors. There's a planner, or a plotter is the other word, and then there's a pantser. And I really err heavily on the side of pantser. Pantser is fly by the seat of your pants, organic storytelling. Planner, or plotter, has much more to do with, bullet points and a very structured narrative with key waypoints that they have to hit in order to advance the the narrative. Whereas a pantser is someone who just lets the story unfold organically, and the characters tend to lead you. There's a Russian author, and I can never remember his name anytime I quote this quote, but
Hmm.
he said the goal of a writer is to get your primary character up a tree and then throw rocks at him.
Mm.
Um, and then you want to see how he fares, and how he fares, and the decisions that he makes, the strategies that he takes on and adopts in order to get out of that situation and to adapt and overcome. That reveals a whole lot about that protagonist's character. So I love that quote, and that's the organic side of storytelling, is just you put them in a predicament, you see how they're going to be able to get themselves out.
And what novel do you think was the most longest and most difficult to write because the character development, what do you do with the characters, the interaction, and are many of your books based on some sort of experiences, like there's something in your life that happened, you're like, wow, this would make a great book or a good scene. You ever done that?
Yeah, I think art imitates life. There was a really good phrase. Another, I believe he was an author, said, and it was basically something along the lines of everything that happens to you as an author, everything that happens to you in your life is a resource.
Mm.
And you can draw upon those resources and then, extrapolate those and unpack them and then project them onto any character that you want and any story that you want. So art does draw upon life that way. But I think overall, yeah, it's such a mixed ball. I don't know exactly how the stories come out, other than first it is a thematic idea that I want to explore. And in this case, with Forecast, it was a man who is struck by lightning, can then receive images from the future, uh, of atrocities, but he needs to be near the person who's going to commit the atrocity. And I've always been very moved by 9/11 and the trauma of it. So he ends up having a part to play in preventing 9/11. I mean, it's kind of a it's a it's a very spoilable plot, um, unfortunately, that book. But that's where that one went. With Dissonance, however, I just knew I wanted an alien invasion, a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and see where the characters go from there.
That's interesting you should say that. So you're talking about the story about images from the future and stuff that brought back that movie Frequency with
Yeah, I
Dennis
love it.
Quaid. Yeah.
Great movie.
And it was interesting how they changed the future so that his father's still alive. And I always thought that I've actually read about all different types of paradoxes. And there's a really great movie on Netflix called Time Cut, and the way they
Hmm.
did that whole time travel sequence. I won't give it away, but it was very interesting. And I know there's all sorts of different types of time travel out there. And one of them is the one, there was a movie with Martin Sheen where he went back in time and killed his own grandfather. So how could you exist?
Hmm.
Stuff like that.
Wow. Exactly. Yeah. It's a what do they call it? A rip in the space-time continuum. I love those types of stories. I tend to look at Forecast as a mashup or an amalgamation of Firestarter meets The Dead Zone meets Groundhog Day meets Minority Report. There are elements, and I'm very visually driven and visually influenced. So I could read Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite story. I mean, as you can tell, I'm a dork. I'm wearing the. It's not the One Ring, of course. Here, I'm still here, but my family's names are inscribed in this ring. Super inspired by Lord of the Rings, but when I'm writing a book, I tend to draw more influence from something visual. I started writing Dissonance the night after, or the morning after we watched I Am Legend for
Oh,
the,
wow.
I don't know how many time, umpteenth time. The visuals in the movie were very compelling and just inspired me to write a book with those visuals setting the stage for the terrain in the book and the world building.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now you're talking about the Dissonance series. It has been incredibly popular. Now, what do you think resonates most with your readers about the series?
For whatever reason, post-apocalyptic and dystopian novels really grab people. They're a really, really popular genre of novelization, and mine doesn't have anything to do with zombies. Post-apocalyptic tends to always suggest zombies. In fact, if you do a search for that on Amazon, you're going to pull up all kinds of, zombie fare. If you do a search for alien invasion, that's another hard genre to define because you get boxed in with alien invasion romance. And yes, there's romance in my book, and yes, there's alien invasion, but never the twain shall meet. And so it's kind of weird just to see that is what people are searching for. I don't know. I think what resonates most with people though is this. One of the greatest quotes I ever heard in a movie was Hunger Games, and President Snow said, "Hope. It is the only thing stronger than fear."
Hmm.
And the aliens, we call them Gorgons, after Medusa the Gorgon, because you one look at them and they lock eyes with you, it's all over. They have a telepathic paralytic. They're going to freeze you with their minds, eat you where you stand, and you're going to feel every bite. So it's agonizing. That is a terrifying thing to encounter, but the hope is that, and it's stronger than fear, the hope is that eventually we will be able to conquer them and drive them off the planet. So the compulsion and the draw of the series is just a lot of hope leading up to our eventual liberation.
What do you think is the worst type of science fiction alien monster eating human experience type is? Like, I just recently watched Love and Monsters, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I would not want a world where bugs and frogs are like twice the size of men eating you. Have you seen that movie yet?
I have not, no.
And
No, there's so many good ones.
how about Quiet Place? What do you think of that
Oh,
series?
yeah, I love A Quiet Place. Very, very inspired by the visuals, and the setting in A Quiet Place. The aliens, my aliens, the Gorgons have some similar attributes to the Death Angels in A Quiet Place. However, one of the most common comparisons that I find people draw is that they're attracted to sound. Well, that's true of any predator. Any predator is attracted to sound. It's just that these are just giant ears in A Quiet Place walking around with legs. They are one big giant audio membrane, so it's a little different in that the audio needs to be so much more squelched. I think one of the scariest ones is frankly mine. I would never want to be paralyzed and not be able to fight back and be eaten where I stood
Oh,
while paralyzed and feel everything, every agonizing bite. But you have other things that are like The Thing.
mm,
John Carpenter's The Thing,
yeah.
being assimilated by this creature. And where does the soul go? Where does your body go once it's been replaced? Imitated, mimicked. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is another similar storyline of that narrative.
How about them? You can only see them with glasses on.
Yeah, Roddy Piper, right? Wasn't that
Yeah.
Roddy Piper? God, it's been so long since I've seen that. Yeah, it's anything that's new, that's inventive, that is a new twist on a common trope. I think is so cool to take part of. I did draw some influences here and there from other sci-fi and creatures and all that stuff, but I think they're fairly unique and they're standalone in that regard. The Gorgons. I'm proud of what I wrote. It's a very compelling story with a lot of thematic depth.
Do you think everything has been done in sci-fi? Do you think something's going to happen where a person say, "Wow, I never saw that coming. I never saw that before"? Because it seems that everything's been done. Um, you have like Roswell, you have Close Encounters, you have stuff like that. Is there anything that has not been done yet?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's people that are going to come across the screen or the page and they're going to surprise us with something. Why didn't I think of that? Is what runs through my head 5, 10, 15 times a day. Um, A Quiet Place was something new and inventive. The Matrix is something new and inventive. Just the sheer ideology behind the Matrix being the real and real life as we know it being the fake is a mind bender. Inception is another one. Arrival. Um,
Mm. Arrival was
yeah, there's
good,
there.
but these were strange aliens that resembled. ink spots. But I am a big fan of Amy Adams. She's my favorite actress. So
Yeah, loved her in Man of Steel.
yeah, definitely. How do you approach world building in your sci-fi novels, Aaron?
Well, for Dissonance, it was actually fairly easy. I'm not a big fan if you were going to hold me at gunpoint and say choose Star Wars or Star Trek. Star Wars would win every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I love Star Wars for its gritty reality. It's raw attainability. So you've got oil dripping down through the panelization of the Millennium Falcon. You've got circuitry that just goes haywire in the Falcon, and Han Solo's got to bang on the panel in order to get it to work. Star Trek, on the other hand, is fairly anesthetized, sanitized, squeaky clean sci-fi that's set, a millennium in the future or several hundred years in the future. I like it, but I like the attainability of Star Wars. What I tried to do in my series is make it attainable. The alien invasion happens in 2026. It's only a few years from now. The books are set in 2042.
Mm.
So only 16 years, and it's an overgrown Earth. So it's Earth, number one. It's attainable in that regard. It's not squeaky clean sci-fi with ray guns. So number two, that makes it attainable. And I threaded my character's way using Google Maps and Google Street View. So
Mm.
there's actual establishments in the book that you would find on a common everyday trek through Clarksville, Tennessee.
Oh wow! So I suppose if you wanted to do a time travel series where you go back in time to prevent JFK's assassination and find out what the world is like, you would literally go back to where he was assassinated and get a feel for it and try to figure it out. Is that how you would do it?
You could. I mean, absolutely, you could. I did it in the reverse. So I had written four of the hexalogy that dissonance has become. And then I actually took a pilgrimage on Labor Day weekend this year to Clarksville, Nashville, Tennessee, both of those, and then also Blue Spring, Kentucky, where primarily where all six of the dissonance books are set. And that was super surreal because I had only ever seen it from an aerial view looking down, or from a street view, looking around. But to be there where my characters walked, that was amazing. I've been to New York in terms of forecast and been to where the two towers stood. So that wasn't too hard out of the realm of suspension of disbelief to kind of figure out what things were like and where people would go and all that stuff. The streets are different, the buildings are different in forecast now, but back then it was pretty predictable.
Well, I know that my friend's daughter is she does a lot of reading where she has like piles and piles of manuscripts and she has to go through them. And if it doesn't captivate her with maybe a page or whatever, she'll put in reject pile. And
Ah,
basically, when you write a book, do you read and try to figure out, okay, you try to be like the author reading it, but you put yourself in the place of the reader and try to see if, hmm, would I be interested in turning the page? Is it a page turner? Um, is it
yeah.
exciting? Is that how you work it?
Yeah, someone paid me the greatest compliment, two actually in reviews. One of them, they called my book unputdownable. Um, I love that. I love that it was riveting enough to hold their attention and compel them to stay there. It's kind of like, your bounce rate for a website. When you create a website, you have to lock them in and make them want to stay and scroll and not bounce off the site. So if they're staying in the book, that's a low bounce rate, and that's what you want. The other compliment that I was paid was someone said, and it was a friend of mine. They left a review and they said, I loved the book so much and got so engrossed in it, I forgot who the author was. Uh, and that was wonderful. I mean, what a compliment that they know me and I know them, but they got lost in the story. It just was such a great compliment.
Well, I have a couple of ideas for stories that I wanted to write about, but I'm going to wait till I shut off the recording because I don't want it to be stolen. But I think it's one of the ideas I had. And how I would start it is, and the character that I have an idea for, I'll let you know after because, never could be stolen.
Sure.
And also in
Yeah.
a book, is it better to say somewhere in Russia or somewhere in Japan or somewhere in New Zealand, or is it better to say Sydney, Australia? Or
Yeah, well,
what do you think is better to say in a book?
yeah, I think the specificity actually gives it a measure of attainability that people really like. When I took my pilgrimage to Clarksville, Tennessee, that's primarily where I was. Granted, I was in Nashville, but I drove all the way up to Clarksville and spent practically the whole day there. I was handing out flyers to people on Austin P University campus. Part of the story takes place there. And I was handing out flyers, and people, when they heard that this book is set in Clarksville, Tennessee, um, got jazzed about that. People, when they heard that I'd had a screenplay made of this book and it's actually right now being pitched to streaming networks, and they think, wow, our city could be on the map, in a Netflix TV show, they get excited about that. If it's set somewhere ambiguous or in a fictional town, in a fictional state, in a fictional
Mhm.
country, it just people lose that reach out and touchability.
I know, but I've seen movies where they say um, in and then they make up a name, something like that. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
No, of course not. It's actually, for some, what was I trying to think of? In the show 24, way back when Jack Bauer was always facing off against Arab terrorists for political correctness, they couldn't name the specific country that that particular terrorist came from in that season of 24. They would call it, his country or the country that he belongs to or whatever. So super nebulous that way. So for political reasons, that actually makes perfect sense in some cases. I
Yeah.
think for the most part, though, if someone wants to set a book in a particular locale, great. If they want to set it in somewhere that represents that locale but doesn't actually exist, people will still go, gosh, that reminds me a lot of my hometown. I think there's still attainability there.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you share some insight into your writing process? Like, do you follow a strict routine?
Boy, I don't. I write when inspiration hits, and even when it doesn't, I just write and write and write. Right now, as a voiceover artist, the industry is really under siege by not just lowballing clients and underbidding colleagues and the SAG-AFTRA strike and the economy,
Hmm.
but AI. AI is really undermining the voiceover industry and many creative industries. So I have been so driven and so compelled to pivot, to adapt and overcome, and to go back into writing as my livelihood in the event that voiceovers completely collapses.
Hmm.
So I'm under a lot of pressure right now to just write and write and write with every spare moment.
Yeah, you like who needs a voiceover artist? Just use AI because I know there's this AI creator, whatever generator that can create a voice for you, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, I can see what you mean.
It's horrifying. God, I can't remember the name of the software. Speechelo is one of them.
Yeah.
Speechelo, they can buy it for $49 or whatever it is. They can have it say whatever they want it to say, but there are hardworking human creatives out there that know how to bring a script to life, that have invested. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of dollars back in this studio that I spent a career investing in. We had this whole shop converted from an
Wow.
880 square foot, concrete and framing shop to one third office and booth back here. And on the other side is a playroom and an exercise room. I did that for my voiceover career. And, is that going to be for naught eventually? I hope not.
What challenges have you faced while writing your books? Like, how have you overcome them?
Well, there's a word that I got from Superman the movie that Richard Donner used, and it's verisimilitude. I love the verisimilitude that is present in Superman. I love the verisimilitude that is present in the Dissonance series. Um, I really strove to make sure that it was believable. And in order to attain that measure of credibility and believability that doesn't strain credulity, it's very military driven. It's very military focused. And so, in order to get details correct, I had to talk to a lot of military folks just to make sure that all the details that I was putting in there were correct, were legitimate, were were what a military savvy reader would read and not go, "What? That's completely off the mark." I got such good feedback from so many military folks to make sure that the details I put in were legit. That was really hard to write it correctly. Um, geez, structuring the narrative so that it constantly builds is always tough. Coming up with new ways for battles to take a new shape that hasn't been done before, that was hard. Um, I love how they turned out. So I don't regard them as super difficult. I just regard them as super enjoyable to construct.
Is there a big issue with copyright if I come up with a novel series where the world is taken over by Terminator type androids that kill people and humans have this leader? Could I be sued for that?
Well, they probably have a copyright registration. I do for all of my novels. And you're right to hold your cards close to the chest in regards to your new story ideas because man, every day I probably get, I don't know, 10 to 20 spam or slash scam emails from people who are expert reviewers and expert marketers and experts. They're all
Same here.
coming from Nigeria, no
Yeah,
offense, but they're all touting this great ability to propel my book, into the stratosphere.
yeah.
And you just have to be really careful. And one of the ways you can be very careful is to just thoroughly research your idea, make sure it's not a carbon copy of something that's been done before. And once you've established that, then just get a copyright registration on it right away.
Well, this is a thing. Like I used an AI to generate a childhood story I made up, and I'm looking at, it, I'm thinking, almost crying because I'm thinking I could have used this. So back when I was 13 or 14, several years way before iPhones, and yes, cars were invented back then. Uh,
Hey, that's great.
so yeah, my horse had to be. Just kidding. So what happened is that I came up with this idea, like a Doctor Who type series, where the dog is a time traveler and it travels
Mm,
around in a TARDIS doghouse. And when the dog, which started as a golden retriever, is sick and tired and about to die, it turns into another dog breed. And
huh.
the enemy is called the Doberman Pinscher. And there's a race of aliens. That's why I want to ask you about the Terminator type aliens. The race of aliens were a cone shaped type of robots called the Zorians. So that would be like
Huh.
the Cybermen right there. So if I had done something with that, would that have caused me an issue with um, all the Doctor Who people?
Yeah, I mean it's really hard to anticipate and it's hard to plan for that. Some people monitor that, some people don't. Some people heavily police their ideas out there on the internet, and the internet is still very much the wild, wild west. So you've got ideas floating around. You've got uncopyrighted, unpatented ideas roaming around and being tossed about as people consider them. It's who knows until you actually decide to run with it and you publish it and then someone else goes, hey, wait a minute. Now I just saw something. I'm very partial to Aliens. My favorite movie is 1986 Aliens by James Cameron with Sigourney Weaver. Favorite movie of all time. I'm sure it is yours and everyone else's. But someone had published a book on Amazon. It was a no name author, a book that was diving into the Aliens canon, the Ridley Scott, James Cameron, David Fincher canon, and and xenomorphs aplenty. But what they were doing was they were using the exact font, coloration, and glow from the title credit of the movie Aliens. So nothing had been changed. They just lifted that PNG file,
Mm.
slapped it on their own book, and I was like, eek. And I was partial to that. I reported them. I reported that book
Wow.
because you can't do that. It's just unless you got permission, unless you have a written letter of permission, from 20th Century Fox that says this is good to use, you're capitalizing on somebody else's progress. And I'm a proponent of protecting your rights.
So if I come up with a group of four people, and you don't have to be four people, and one of them discovers a portal to different parallel dimensions, that's sliders right there. But I'm not calling it sliders. I'm calling it something totally different, like portals or
Yeah,
something. Is that
right.
issue of copyright still exists?
Well, no one holds a copyright on the word portal. No one holds a copyright on people traveling through portals. In fact, in Forecast, they're not called portals. It's vortex, the vortices. There are people, traveling through them inadvertently. That's not a copyright infringement.
Mm.
Copyright infringement is something where someone it's materially so similar to what you've written. It's a
Mm.
body of text, names of characters, not one, but multiple characters, or a singular character with his whole name, reproduced in your book, like a Luke Skywalker. You can't use the name Luke Skywalker. That's Star Wars, clearly.
Yeah.
So you have to tread lightly and stuff. But I think the only people that are really doing that are are our friends that we talked about from Nigeria earlier.
Yeah. Talking about forecast. I love forecast because it deals with alternate history and the butterfly effect. How did you
Hmm.
research that concept? Like, how do you know that was correct? Was it just from your own idea?
No, it was largely from my own idea. I'm very much impacted by 9/11 to this day. Is that a picture? Yeah, there's a picture of the two towers back there. It's this gray one right up here. And I'm very much inspired by the heroism, the bravery, the gravity, the trauma of the entire affair, and United 93, the heroes and victims aboard 93. So I wanted a chance. First of all, I had missed the gravity of 2001 because I was going through a lot of personal upheaval. So granted, I saw the towers fall. I saw United 93, the crater in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I saw the Pentagon get drilled into. I saw people falling from the towers. I will never forget, and
Wow.
I will always remember the gravity of 9/11.
Wow.
But I think a lot of the impact of it was lost on me because I was going through such a big time of upheaval that I was ripe for a reawakening in 2005. That's when it really hit me. I ended up writing a song about it. Um, and it Forecast is my chance to undo a major tragedy.
Wow.
Forecast was my chance to set history back a pace, start it over without this colossal loss of life and this colossal 9/11 changed history. Sorry, 9/11 changed the world, not just the United States, and not necessarily for the better. So it was my chance to undo it.
It's very interesting that JFK assassination thing has been like there was a Red Dwarf episode where they literally changed that whole thing and prevent JFK from being assassinated. And when it went into the
Mm.
future, they're like, no, guys, we're gonna go back and redo this. It was amazing. But I think it's been too overdone though. Like and the whole 9/11 thing, like, okay, I don't know if you there's a guy named John Teeter and he said that he was a time traveler from 2030. But people think he was from 2030, but I'm thinking, okay, if he was from 2030, why didn't he in 1999 or 2000 tell people that in September 11, 2001, 9/11 would happen, Trump would be president, all this down like,
Mm.
okay, well, The Simpsons tells you that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that claim to be Nostradamus, but
Yeah.
they're quickly revealed, and the tree is known by its fruit, right? But yeah, I don't know of any fictional account that is revisionist in nature, that is alternate historical in nature in terms of undoing JFK, undoing that assassination and saving, thereby saving JFK's life. I think that'd be very cool to watch. Now, it does bring up a different wrinkle in time, to quote Madeline L'Engle, because if you go back and you change things in the past, well, it had bearings in something as familial and warm and fuzzy as Back to the Future. He's going back in time and he's disrupting things there, and it's changing. Terminator, the Terminator series, where they go back and they alter the future by throwing away blowing up Cyberdyne and all that stuff. So, granted, I mean, yes, what you do in the present has a bearing on the future. What you did in the past has a bearing on now. I didn't want to go too far into it and plumb the depths of. First of all, he's not in the future going back to the past of 9/11. He's just in September of 2001. The book is set in September of 2001, leading up to 9/11. It's just that he is blessed, he would say cursed, with foreknowledge through a freak event and is able to then see these future images of what's going to happen, and he averts them. So who's to say what bearing that would have had on the future, because he doesn't know. He's not from the future.
If you can watch the old Twilight Zone series episode in 1980, it's called Portrait in Silver, where um, uh, and I guess you call him ancestor 200 years in the future goes back to prevent the
Hmm.
assassination, and it tells exactly what will happen. Fantastic.
Oh,
But I think if you get a chance to go on YouTube and find a red dwarf, I don't know if you remember Red Dwarf. We have the guy who's like a evolved cat into a human and stuff. It's an old BBC series. It's
I'll have to look that
fantastic,
up. Interesting.
fantastic episode. Um, Aaron, how do you balance writing multiple genres from sci-fi to business reference books? Like, how does that happen?
Well, the business reference books were basically so I wrote six business reference books as a voiceover artist. One was a trilogy. There were three of them in a trilogy, and then there were three other books. And so, shifting back to book writing as an author from voiceovers, granted, those books already existed and they were under my stage name. But I basically took the best of a few of those books and I, kind of made an amalgamation of them into the Superhero Anomaly, because the whole series is called the Super Voiceover Artist series. Well, it really has to do with this perspective on life and business and attaining a good balance. That's what the Superhero Anomaly is all about. That was not new material. Reflections, my book of poetry, was not new material. That was written over the course of several years ago, and never published it. um, how to successfully publish, self-publish your book, a lot of and market your book. A lot of that came from another book of mine that was more focused on voiceovers. But there are so many things you can do as a business person, and that's what an author is a business person. Treating it like a business, you're going to go a lot farther than as a hobby. There were so many things that I gleaned from running a successful voiceover business that also applied to authoring. And so I refocused it, repackaged it, retargeted it towards authoring, and then released that book. So that's those three. The Dissonance series was a story that just would not stop writing itself. I
Hmm.
seriously felt like an alien queen had burst out of me. It wanted to be told. The story wanted to be told. And I kept trying to return to Forecast after I'd written the trilogy, but then it demanded a prequel. And then I tried to go back to Forecast. Dissonance demanded another prequel. And then I tried to go back to Forecast. Dissonance demanded a sequel. And so I was like, okay, stop. I'm done. Dissonance, hexology done. Put it aside. Gotta do Forecast. So, but I'll go back to what we were talking about earlier. AI is crippling the voiceover industry and our income. So I have been writing like crazy out of a huge desire to pivot and make this my bread and butter.
Yeah, definitely. And when I told you before that the books, not books, but the stories I wrote in the past, I had a character development where I had to write the name of the person and write kind of like a biography of who they are just to make them real. Like, what role does character development play in your stories, and how do you create relatable characters? I think some of my characters were based on people I knew. Like, I was a science teacher. I'm like, wow, that looks like Professor Shiphoff. Okay, I'll use him. Or I would go online and I type in, I think my character would be Zachary. So I type in Zachary and it give me all these photos of people, and I would pick the
Right.
best one that may look like someone who could be the scientist or whatever, just because I wanted to get the face in my head, and then I could, okay, Dr. Jansen has blue eyes and he's got a receding hairline. He wears whatever, That's how I would do it. How would you do it?
Yeah, well, that actually that mode is so much more appropriate for a plotter or a planner. That type of thing, developing schematics and developing a storyboard with flow charts and flow notes and this and
Mm-hmm.
that. I just don't work that way.
Mm.
My mind isn't geared that way. And what that ends up doing for me, not everyone, granted, it works excellently for a plotter, but as a pantser, it disrupts my ability to just dive in, to go. And I think a lot of people err on the side of planner and plotter out of analysis paralysis. They have to just fine tune absolutely everything, and this lever and this dial, and I mean, get all that out of the way and just start writing. You have to at some point just be willing to commit and pull the trigger and write. So I didn't do a lot of character. I prefer to have the character development happen as the story goes along and you learn about the character. Otherwise, some of that comes across as info dumping, and I don't like to do that. So I try to employ different things that again reveal the character of the protagonist. So you get him up a tree, you throw rocks at him. Well, how he gets out of that kerfuffle shows who he is. And so I would put roadblocks in front of my own protagonist organically because that's how life happens. We get a flat tire. We didn't plan that. Kid throws up on us. We didn't plan that. Uh, our kid gets in a fight at school. We got to pick him up, bring him home. We didn't plan that. Have to end the date early because so and so the babysitter didn't show up. Didn't plan that. All of these things happen organically to us, and how we figure them out reveals who we are. So that's how I figure out who my characters are. It was a really
Okay.
long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. What advice would you give to aspiring authors like me, I guess, who want to write in the sci-fi genre?
Well, it doesn't really matter to me the genre so much because this advice is universal for you. Number one, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Oscar Wilde said that, and I believe it. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Don't try to be the next Suzanne Collins, J.K. Rowling,
Oh yeah.
yeah, Tolkien, Asimov, Clancy, Crichton. Don't try to be who they are. Just you do you and write your own stuff and be unique. We talked earlier about, is sci-fi kind of dead? Is anything really
Mhm.
unique anymore? And you have the power to keep the uniqueness alive. The singularity of your idea is so valuable to the sci-fi industry, or to the book writing industry as a whole. But I'd also say, really, as much as possible, with every ounce of me, steer clear of AI. If you
Mm.
must use AI, use it to maybe perhaps generate some ideas for a story or to bring some character visualizations to life. They do it all the time in Hollywood. They do what's called a previs, and they pre-visualize the story to pitch it to producers so that they can see the storyboard of what the director and what the producer is seeing on screen in this little these little cells. If AI can help you do that, fine. But there are so many people using Chat GPT and OpenAI and things like that to write entire books
I've seen that, and
for
they make
them,
money off it.
and it's just out of capitalistic greed, and they're taking AI again to develop a cover. They slap it on there, they throw their own name on it, and that is so banal, that's so low. You didn't do anything, and now you're making money off of that, and you're driving down book rates because people find out that you're doing that, and it's a terrible thing. So steer clear of AI. If you're a creative, that is, steer clear of AI. It does have benefits, but not for the creative industries, really. Can you
So
tell I
this,
feel strongly about that?
yeah, I feel strongly with the whole thing. Like, okay, I'm gonna digress here for a minute. So your T-shirt has a picture of Jesus on it. It says,
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw that."
He's
Okay,
going, I saw that.
are you a believer?
I am a believer. Yes,
Good.
absolutely.
Same here. And
Very cool.
the Dissonance saga talks about, like, as you mentioned early in the podcast, in June 2026, the aliens silently floated down through our clouds. At first, we thought they were angelic messengers. We were wrong. We called
Mm,
them gorgons. after the mythical Medusa. Okay, so this is interesting. How do you feel being a Christian that you have writing about that?
Yeah. So fantastical literature. Many say that J.R.R. Tolkien was a Christian and he wrote fantasy. C.S. Lewis wrote sci-fi and fantasy as a
Right.
Christian. The genres are not too terribly different from each other. My Gorgons inherit features from a fantastical creature in Greek mythology, and that's Medusa. So I don't feel a conflict there. I'm not endorsing any of them, but what I do say, the strain I feel and have felt in any of these novels is incorporating language that is, somewhat objectionable here and there. So if a Gorgon is coming at you and you are going to be eaten or somebody's going to be eaten, whatever, you don't say, oh, shucks, oh, darn, fiddlesticks. I have employed the SH word sparingly. My audience for these books is teen and young adult and up. But I will never use the F word. I will never use illicit sex. I will never use bullying or drug use or things like that. I do have to draw the line. But I do also want, we're going back to verisimilitude here. I do also want to maintain that believability that this is a real life situation and we are exposed to this all the time in books and movies. If they are going to come across the SH word here and there, which isn't very often in my books for that very reason, because I'm a believer, I can handle that. But it does mess with my conviction, and my conviction messes with it as it's supposed to. So.
So you're a Christian in World War II, and you're gunning down the enemy. Now you're a murderer. You're a Christian murderer. So it can go both ways. Like, okay, you don't use the sh word and you don't use the f word, but in real life situation where there are aliens invading, you're going to go shh, and then you're going to use the s word, and you're going to get you get like that. It's
Yeah,
just going to happen. So if you want to make it real, you have to use these words, but there could be a way around it. Like you'd say, the main character use the f word and blah blah blah, or the main character, you know,
swore,
yeah,
cursed.
yeah, a
Yeah, I've done
person.
that.
Yeah.
I've done that because it's one of those things that just gives me an out, and it's something that I don't have to resort to it there and then. I've found largely just through kind of an impromptu focus group of friends and family who have read the books. None of them look at that any less because
Mm,
of it. None of them have expressed that it's denigrated the quality of the work. None of them have looked at me any differently. Like, how could you? My son read this.
mm,
I never got any of that. In fact, in volume one, in the afterword, I have an afterword for every one of these volumes. I do address this conundrum of having to use a modicum of profanity in order to maintain that that believability of everyday life of things that we're already exposed to. Are we exposed to aliens floating around and eating us? No. So the book is already fantastical. The book is already fiction. I just didn't want to keep it G rated for the sake of keeping it G rated because then you lose some of the intensity and the
mhm,
stakes are way down. The stakes
yeah.
are much lower.
So, how do you stay motivated, Aaron, and inspired to write, especially when working a long series like Dissonance? Like, how are you going to keep it going? There's got to be an end to it. There's got to be like Dissonance, the final. It's like that movie, The Final Girl, where that one girl that they do whatever they do. I don't know if you ever seen that movie,
Mm-mm.
and she ends up doing them in, killing them
Oh
off.
wow, no,
So,
I haven't seen it.
uh,
Dissonance will be done. So volume 4, which I know it's a crazy uh, it's a crazy timeline, I guess, or numbering structure, but I should have thought about that maybe a little bit more before I published volume one. But volume one, two, three, and four are chronological.
hmm.
Volume zero and volume up are prequels that happen before volume one.
Oh
So
wow,
zero naturally comes before
so it's
volume
like the
one.
Star Wars saga.
Yeah, because then you're going to have prequels. But do you read the prequels and then volume one, two, three, four, or do you read one, two, three, four, and then zero and up? I like to do one, two, three, four, and then the prequels because, granted, people will die. The aliens are going to get them. and then you go back to prequels, and then your beloved characters are alive again. I think that that's really super refreshing. But I'm done. I actually am done with Dissonance with the publishing of Volume 4, which is coming on the 20th. That's the sequel. I have moved on and written and published Forecast. I'm
Hmm.
now working on another novel called The Slide, which I will keep my chips close to my chest as well. That one's coming along slowly because I'm doing a heck of a lot of marketing for Dissonance and Forecast right now.
Are there any authors or books that have significantly influenced your writing style?
Well, definitely Tolkien. There are any diehard Tolkien fan is going to pick up on some inferences or some phraseologies in my books rather readily. They're a nod, they're a tip of the hat to Tolkien, and I'm proud of that because I'm such a geek and I've read Lord of the Rings so many times that they're just fresh in my head even after all these years. So Tolkien definitely. I love Suzanne Collins, Hunger Games. I really appreciated Marie Lu's Legend trilogy, and I love the fact that she alternates between first persons of multiple narrators. In Dissonance Volume Up Rising, which is the second prequel in the Dissonance series, that one is told from the perspective of four
Whoa.
different main characters, first
Wow.
person. And then the last chapter is a bonus fifth first person character, who people, when they read that, they'll love that. Um, I'm inspired by a lot of different writers and movies all the time. It's impossible to list all of them.
That's very interesting. How do you manage your time between writing, promoting your books, and your personal life? How does that work for you?
Yeah. Well, it's 5 p.m. here Pacific time. This is usually when I'm off because the kids are pining for dinner and daddy. Mommy's pining for dinner and daddy. So I do have a hard and fast rule usually that I'm going to work 9 to 5 every day, just as I would for any other job. The family demands that, and I owe them that. So I like to treat it like a business, and like a job in that regard. Um, but when I'm here, I'm again two different but very parallel uh, storyteller tracks, voiceovers, and authoring. So in between auditions and recorded, booked jobs, I'm writing. I'm writing, and then here comes some good auditions or a job. I break and I veer over here, and I'm doing this now. And then these are all done. I come back over here, and I'm writing again. So it's kind of a ping pong teeter totter seesaw all the time. I manage it pretty well, though, I think.
Yeah, I think you do. How do you see the future of sci-fi literature evolving, and where do you see your work fitting in that landscape?
Well, I think, boy, it's every author's dream to have their works adapted to the screen and then show up on the screen. So we are climbing that ladder right now, and I certainly hope that it is picked up by a major network. Um, I'd just be as giddy as an 11-year-old schoolgirl. I would love it, like beyond words. I would love it, and I would hope that it would be formative to the sci-fi industry, that it would be as influential as something like Aliens. I have no illusions because I'm not, uh, delusions of grandeur aside, I'm not like that lofty to think that this is anywhere near Aliens, but it's really good stuff, and I'm so grateful God gave me that story. So that's for my future. The future of sci-fi, I think, is still very strong. People love hope and technology and the future and what it could be, and even present day sci-fi is still so very interesting because just of the far-fetched ideas that people come up with that make you go, "Wow, how'd you think of that?" And it's a crazy ride.
Okay, now is a quick game here. Is a useless facts about Aaron Ryan. We're going to choose the best ones here before we end the stream. Here we go. All right.
All right.
You used to own a pet finch named Beep.
Yep,
You have a wonderful dog named Macy that you refer to as your daughter. You think you need therapy? I call my cat my daughter.
she's right there. She is what we call her our baby girl. So
There
that's
you
Macy
go.
girl. Hi,
And my
Macy
black
girl.
cat's, yeah, my black cat's known as my baby girl as well.
Yep.
And as a child, you enjoyed several vigorous spit fights and rubber band fights in the dark with siblings when parents were out of town. Is that true?
It is very true.
I want to ask you about the one where you set an international legal record for consuming the highest amount of elementary school sloppy joes, sixth grade, just to attract a prospective girlfriend. Is it the one you're currently married to?
No, no, that didn't even last. I mean, it was maybe like a few hours, if I'm being gracious that way and realistic. We had sloppy joes for school lunch that day, and for whatever reason, I just decided to impress her to show her how many I could eat. And as you can see, I'm still struggling with that today. So those same habits, man, they die hard.
You have a few good ones here. You were participating in several talent shows of youth imitating Michael Jackson, and
I was.
so can you actually do his voice as well?
No, it was basically just the dancing. So a much slimmer figure as a kid. Um, and I seriously could do the moves. Now I'm just a big lumbering, 51-year-old brute who does not dance in any way like MJ gracefully.
So you have been mistaken at times your vocal style for the Cowardly Lion. How you don't sound like the Cowardly Lion?
No, when singing, so I would actually do the impression of the Cowardly Lion. I would do it at my old church, in the workplace. For these girls my coworkers just loved it. I don't think I've done it for the kids yet because they've only been maybe once or twice introduced to the Wizard of Oz. But that vibrato is the only thing that's just so hard to master. Burl, what I forget his name. The actor uh, who played the Cowardly Lion. Um,
Oh,
it
Bert
was just
Lahr.
the way Bert Lahr. I thought it was Bert. I was going to say Burl Ives. Bert Lahr.
Bert Lahr, yeah.
Um, he would do, not queen, not duke, not prince, and then my regal robes of the forest, and you just can't do that vibrato. It's really hard.
This is interesting. I got a couple. Okay, you can imitate famous voices. So here's what I want you to do: is
Oh
Jimmy
man.
Stewart.
Well, see, Jimmy Stewart is very difficult to do, see, and it takes a lot of focused concentration, and by golly, it's hard to do. So it's been a while since I've done these. This is why I'm a voiceover artist, so I can act behind the scenes.
Wow,
I'll go like this.
wow! I'm surprised
I'll
you're
go
not
like
doing
that.
Christopher Walken.
I would love to do Christopher Walken, but I don't even know where to begin with him. I envy the people who can do him because he has just an incredible voice.
Well, I'm going to make sure I link all this down there. But this one I want to ask is about the hurled tennis rackets, the small moving objects with frightening accuracy. Like, why didn't you join the military or something? Because they could use someone like you.
I didn't join the military. Instead, I wrote about it. See that? See all that military? There we go.
That's true. Okay, so one last question for you is, what do you want to tell the audience who are struggling to become authors, actors, voiceover artists, even musicians? Because you once were involved in music. What is it you can
Yeah.
tell them to make them keep going?
Yeah. Well, so I'm sitting here today because in 2007 I was about ready to throw in the towel as a business person. Um, I started a multimedia company and I was just beset by problems right away. I mean, it was like, wow, Lord, I don't even know what's happening or
Wow.
why all this is happening because I thought this is what I was supposed to do, but wow. Um, and a client referred me to a phrase by, I believe it's Confucius, where he said, the temptation to quit will always be greatest just before your greatest success. And I mean, I struggle with that today, about voiceovers. I struggle with it about authoring because you constantly have to grease the wheel. You constantly have to market, constantly have to put yourself out there, continue to write good stuff. But you do have to continue. And one of the easiest things to do is just simply quit.
Mm,
Um, but what happens when you quit is you shortchange what could be the greatest development of your entire life. I look
exactly.
around, and this was all because I continued. All of this and all of these books is because I continued back in 2007. So by all means, um, continue when you feel like quitting. It is totally worth it. The other thing I would say is adapt a mantra. Sorry, adopt a mantra. The mantra that I've adopted, and I liked it so much I put it on a quote on a plaque. It comes from a movie I like to pretend does not exist, which is Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
Hmm.
Nonetheless, I love the phrase. Qui-Gon Jinn said it to a young Anakin Skywalker, your focus determines your reality. Okay? My focus has been to be an excellent voiceover artist and for that to provide our income and pay our bills. Check. My focus is to be a best-selling, continually best-selling author whose work is adapted to the screen and is seen on the screen, and who continues to write best-selling novels. That's happening. All four of these, the other one is too new, have been bestsellers on Amazon. Forecast, I expect to be a bestseller. I expect Dissonance to be picked up by a studio. My focus determines my reality. So adopt a mantra like that.
Okay, if you're mentioning Star Wars, I got a Star Wars joke for you.
Okay.
What did Yoda say when he saw himself in 4K?
Oh my. 4K or not 4K? I don't
No,
know.
HDMI.
HDMI. Very nice. I get it. That's a dad joke for me. There are so many dad jokes in the first prequel to my series, and that's so me. Yeah, I love them.
Thank you so
I
much,
got
Aaron.
8 and 5-year-olds right there, so those guys get the dad jokes all the time. Those guys.
Thank you, Aaron, so much for sharing insights and experiences with us today. It's been a fascinating time to learn about your work and creative processes. We look forward to reading your upcoming projects and wish you continued success in your writing journey.